So, hello to everyone. I hope you're doing well. It's a beautiful spring day here on the homestead. And look around. No snow to shovel. Isn't it fantastic? Yeah, so I thought today I would just answer some questions that I've received. I think I got 4 or 5 questions, so let me just go through them. So, login B07. You were wondering, what are your long-term plans and dreams for the farm? And question 2, you currently lease the house and farm. How long is the term, and do you have the opportunity to buy the farm at some point? Spring is coming soon, the days are already getting longer. Yes, you're absolutely right. Spring is already here. So throughout the years, my long-term goals have changed a lot. And the truth is, I still don't know. So as I see it, there are 2 paths that I can take. Path 1 is to stay farming part-time and working part-time, which I am doing now. I have a work at the local hospital in healthcare. 50% I work half time, and then the rest of my waking life is family and the farm. Usually it works out okay. It's hard to balance sometimes when you have some very intensive periods on the farm, but all in all I would say that I have a pretty good work-life balance. Sticking on that path, it does give me a lot of joy, and it's really such a relief to not be dependent on, the farm and the homestead and food production and all of that to give myself a salary. And then the other path is to try to taking a leap and trying to make a living farming and homesteading. And it's not impossible. I mean, if I do take the leap, I've done some calculations, and all I need to do is scale up to maybe 500 layer hens, and if I manage to sell about 400 to 450 eggs per day, I can afford the same salary that I get from working part-time at the hospital. Having 200 birds or having 400 birds, the time difference is not so great. The question is though selling that amount of eggs, which is a little bit tricky. There's a lot of other really nice, small scale egg producers around here. It sort of feels like I have reached the limit of how many eggs I can sell. To be honest, I don't know. Some days I feel like taking the leap and saying yes. Imagine if I could just be home all the time and enjoy days like these, instead of getting home after work and having an hour and a half of stress before I have to pick up my kid at preschool, and then there's dinner, and then there's family and everything, which is all really important. I want to prioritize that. But I also think that long term, if I do end up just farming and living on, being at home full time, I think it'd get a little bit lonely. I do enjoy working in healthcare because I meet a lot of people. It's very meaningful to feel that you can be of service to others in that way. And that's also a part of me that I would, say no to if I decided to stay at home full time. Yeah, I think the long term, it's still leaning towards more the same path that I'm on now. Working part-time and then homesteading and farming part-time. I won't be able to do all my dreams on the farm. I won't be able to, scale up gardening, and I won't be able to have all these other projects maybe that I'd like to have, like social projects with preschool kids and adolescent kids, invite them to the farm and just show them what a farm looks like, let them have some hands-on experience. I mean, there's so many things you could do with a farm our size, so close to the city. If you ask me in a year, maybe I'll answer different, but as for now, I think that's my long-term plan. So thanks for your question. Question 2 is if you're wondering if we lease the house and the farm. And yes, we do. We lease it from the municipality. In order to live here on the farm, you have to take care of the meadows and the grazing grounds. The lease is 5 years at a time, and you're right. If the municipality decides to turn this farm or sell the farm, which I don't think they will do because the farm is located in a protected area, So it means that they have an interest of having control over how this farm is run and what it does and cannot do. For example, we're not allowed to use artificial fertilizers or any kinds of pesticides or any kinds of chemicals in our operations, which I probably wouldn't do anyway. But the Swedish laws do dictate that if the owner decides to sell a leased farm or a leased piece of land, then you do have the right to buy it. You're the one, if you can afford it. Yeah, they won't put it out on the market. They'll ask you first before they take it out on market. So, but I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. And if it did, I don't know if I could afford living here, but I sure would love to. So, next question is by Jane. You are wondering if agriculture in Sweden is privately owned or government funded, and then you're wondering how much land we own. In Sweden, most farming is, of course, privately owned, but there are government subsidies within the whole of EU that Sweden, as an EU member, also takes part of. So within the EU, it's about half of the EU funding or the EU budget that goes to farming. So farming is a big priority, and the funding comes in the form of subsidies, and they're usually connected to how much land that you farm, either that you own or you lease. It doesn't matter if you own or lease land, as long as you are using that land to farm in some way and contribute to food production, then you have the right to apply for these subsidies. And then on top of those subsidies, we have in Sweden environmental subsidies, which means that if you have meadows, grazing paddocks that have a high amount of biodiversity, then the government will pay you a particular amount. I think right now the highest amount is about $180 US dollars, or for about 1 hectare of grazing. So 1 acre is 0.4 hectares. So yeah, just roughly, what can you say? More than 2 acres maybe? All of these subsidies are in place because one of the biggest priorities with EU, the European Union, is to have a sense of food security. These subsidies are basically there to offer farmers a salary for their labor. It's not really working out that way because farmers are still under too much pressure and the costs are too high. That's why we've seen a lot of protests going on in Europe these past couple of weeks, and I think they're still going on. Farmers are very displeased with the EU and its regulations, especially that the EU wants to try to make farming a little bit more environmentally friendly, which sort of clashes with farmers' ability to remain competitive on a world stage, if you want to put it that way. And environmental subsidies are there because the market doesn't pay for conservation agriculture. It doesn't pay for environmental, it doesn't pay for food production systems that improve soil and improve the health of ecosystems. All these are externalized in the modern economy, so it means that it's a race to the bottom. The cheaper you can produce food, more food you'll probably get because you increase your efficiency, but it's at the price of ecosystems and biodiversity, which of course are incredibly important for our food security. Yeah, so farmers are being pushed in two different directions. And you really need a paradigm shift when it comes to the common agricultural policy within the EU and how subsidies are focused and distributed. But that's probably a question for a completely different video. But thanks for your question. Mark, you are wondering, it'd be interesting to discuss how large a small farm needs to be in order to be profitable, which I'd consider to be cash flow neutral after paying one farmer's salary. How would you do to approach that issue on your farm? Yeah, that's a very good question. I wouldn't say cash flow neutral after having paid a salary is enough, because you obviously have to have a profit so you can reinvest in your business, repair machines and everything. But all that is probably included, I guess, in your budget. And what you mean, it's a tricky question because it depends on so many different parameters. Obviously, the biggest issue or the biggest question, how big you need to be, is what price can you get for what you sell? And the price you can get all depends on your proximity to a local market of people that you can sell direct to. Because I would say if you are not selling like direct to consumer, you cannot survive as a small farmer, at least not in Sweden. I would think that in the US, where I don't believe there are any farm subsidies in the same way as here in Europe, it's even harder to survive or make it as a small farmer if you're not selling directly to consumer. It's probably the biggest factor that decides whether you need to be big or you can remain small. Personally, for us, the reason we can be this small and still be profitable is that I don't take out a salary. We do make a little bit of a profit in the company, but everything is reinvested. But in our case, we have 200 layer hens, we have 60 ewes, 20 rams, and 5 steers. And the only way that we are making a profit is by first selling direct. And number 2 is that we are blessed to have a local municipality that really sees the benefit of grazing animals. We have a contract with them to graze a couple of acres every year, located in 4 different paddocks across town with our sheep. And that is something that they pay for. That, of course, adds to the bottom line. We're able to make money by just having grazing animals and not having to raise them for meat. But then another factor is, of course, the amount of debt that you've had to take on in order to get started, the kinds of machines that you are investing in. Good thing with small scale is that you can probably get by without a lot of debt. Try to find as many added value things that you can do to your farm, like having farm tours, offering Airbnb, like bed and breakfast on your farm. If you're in a location where a lot of people coming and going or passing by, you can use that as your advantage. Try to think of ways to create experiences for people. I think we really need to reevaluate the expectations we have on ourselves as farmers. I think it's really difficult to expect that you're going to make a living off of one income stream. It's only the large-scale producers that manage to survive off of one enterprise, like beef or lamb, cereals, grains, whatever it is. The advantage of small farms is that often I think they are a lot more versatile, and I think you need to be a lot more versatile in order to make it. You have to have a lot more different kinds of income streams. So I just talked about a little bit or touched a little on ecotourism, which is one thing that I'm also thinking a little bit about trying to, maybe offer here on our farm, some kind of Airbnb experience. But yeah, we have to really get away from the idea that we're going to be able to make money only off of food. And it's so strange that we live in a world and an economy that undervalues food so much, that people who find joy and happiness and meaning in offering and making and producing food for people are among the ones that are struggling the most to make ends meet. But we live in this kind of world and we need to adapt. So on that subject, I also think experiences is really important. Offering something that the big stores and the big retailers cannot offer, and that is a relationship. Am I a little bit too overexposed? I think so there. Sorry. I was a bit too overexposed. When people feel that they have a relationship with somebody, they are willing to go the extra mile. Your customers who you know by name and by face and who see what you're doing and they want to support you, they want to help you do what they cannot do. Telling your story and letting people know about all the benefits that you and your lifestyle and that your vision for your farm is, and make sure that you have a social aspect to what you do, that you want to do something good for your local community, and make sure that you communicate that very well. Make sure you have an environmental aspect in your messaging and in your farming and whatever it is you do, so that you can also show people and tell people about all those benefits that you provide. And of course, a nutritious and health benefit and an economic benefit Show that the money people are spending at your place, that money is going to be reinvested, in the local community, because money spent buying food from local small-scale farmers often remains within the local economy, at least part of it. Instead of sending the money far away from where you live, it is reinvested. And that is also a big plus for people, because they want their local community to thrive. Many people might not think about this, but having a farm, at least one that contributes and adds to biodiversity and has grazing animals out in the summer, adds to the property value of properties that are sort of in the near vicinity of this farm. For example, here in Sweden, there was a few years ago, I read a statistic that said that on average, having a paddock with grazing animals within eyesight or near to any property increases the real estate value of that property by 150 to 200,000 crowns, which is maybe $15,000 to $20,000. And all these small things people don't think about, but they make a lot of sense when you tell that story and put words to it. That's also a long answer to the question of how to make a small farm profitable. You need to work a lot more on your messaging, your marketing, and just building relationships with people in your local community. And lastly, another really important thing, of course, is to think of the 20-80 principle. More often than not, 80% of your revenue comes from something you spend maybe 20% of your time on. Make sure that you understand your finances and you understand the needs of your local community, and sort of make sure that you can cater to that through your production. If you're into vegetable production, you're not just growing vegetables that you like, you're actually growing things that people want and need in your local community. So it helps to compare what you do to others and really appreciate your uniqueness in a way. Even though small-scale farms are often selling at a premium, we are still competing with everybody else. And that's where I think relationship farming has such a huge advantage. One that the retailers and the big stores will never be able to match. So, got a little bit chilly outside, so we just lit a fire here. So I think I'll take the last 2 questions sitting by the fire. Just to finish things off with, in relation to the last question, is that, we often think that it is a really difficult time to go into farming, but I would say that it's probably the best time ever to go into farming, because I don't think a farmer has ever been this free in a way when it comes to how he or she wants to farm, and free from the demands of the retailers and the major global food system, because technology just in the last 20-30 years has made it possible for us to be able to completely cut out the middlemen. And we can also learn to do new things. Just go on YouTube and you can learn anything. I really think that now is the best and probably the most important time to actually pursue a life of farming, and not expect that farming is going to bring you the same standards of living that you might have had having an office job or whatever else you did before farming. But farming offers, of course, something else, and it is possible to live as a farmer. You just have to cut your standards a little bit and live a little bit more simplistic, minimalist, and maybe frugal life. Find pleasures in simple and cheap things. I think it's what the world needs more of. If it really is spring, then why am I so cold? Back at the bench where it all started. So I just need to answer a customer. Det går bra. So the amount of hours I spend on my phone talking to people and SMSing. So the last question, Dwayne, I think, is wondering, what's the most difficult animal or anything on the homestead that has been done or dealt with that you dread doing or dealing with? Dread is a good word, because it sort of describes the feeling very well. To be honest, one of the biggest things I do dread is summertime. It's the most wonderful time, but it's also the time that I sort of dread the most, because so many things can go wrong. Not only, machines breaking down in the middle of harvests, but one thing that I do really not look forward to is moving cattle. Moving animals in general, but especially moving cattle, is something that stresses me a lot. And since I'm all by myself doing it, that adds to the stress, because even though I don't have very many cattle, we have 5 this year. At the peak of production many years ago, I had 15 steers, and that was not easy. That was really tricky. Just to put this into context for everyone, we farm about 52 hectares, which is, so that's 130 acres. Yeah, 100% is permanent pasture and meadows where we take our hay, but the pastures is where the animals graze. And all of this is spread out across the valley here where we live, and also across the city. Boy, it's getting cold. I'm shaking. So that means that the animals have to be moved at least 8 to 15 times during a season. And one move might be taking the tractor and the trailer, filling it with gates, loading up the animals in it, and then moving them, driving often through the city with a lot of traffic with big heavy animals, hoping that nothing will go wrong, hoping that you closed the door to the end of the trailer properly so it doesn't fly open when you're driving and all the animals end up running around the city. These are the kinds of nightmares I have. That time when I have to do that and I'm all by myself, it's probably what I dread the most, and it's very stressful. But I try to just have a still mind. I just try to do the work. I know that I can feel the anguish, and I can feel how the resistance every time I start the tractor and, do that chore. But I know it has to be done, and usually it goes well. But it's mostly the dread before actually getting started on the task at hand. But yeah, moving cattle and loading cattle during the summer is probably what I dread the most, I would say, on the farm. Then of course you have all the bookkeeping and all the official government entities that need to come and do all their controls, and that's also a bit scary, because you might have missed something. Even though you have the best of intentions, maybe there's some form you forgot to fill out, or something that you have missed when it comes to how you keep your animals, which is not the end of the world, but it's one little paragraph that where you fell short. Those things don't scare me as much now as they did when I was younger and just starting out, and maybe that's a maturity thing, I don't know. That seems to be one of the things with one of the perks of growing old. I'm 42 now this year, and I do realize that I care less and less about other people's opinions, and that is such a relief. Especially as a man, because we men, we are very insecure beings, creatures. We do measure ourselves a lot, especially to other men. If we're not up to par with what it is that we're comparing ourselves with, then our whole identity is questioned. So, and the older I get, the less those kinds of things become important to me. So it's very liberating in a way. So that's it for now. I hope I answered everyone's question, and if I missed a question, just let me know and I'll try to answer it in a future video. But thanks for watching. This was fun, and good luck to you with whatever you're doing, and have a good day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.